Actually, the mind tunes with nature, and those rajas and tamas, they subside. So when you go to a place like that, the place is filled with devotional energy and people who meditate, so it's a quiet place. Even though you were there, we could hear the noise from the traffic, right? And so, but the mind, the rajas and tamas, they by and by, they just calm down because there's not much going on. So it's very simple, you know. It's just rajas and tamas converting themselves. Of course, you don't have the stimuli coming from the environment because you're in the nature, for example, up there. But and then you have to deal with the thoughts, objects which are printed in your own mind as well. They become like the main source of distraction. And then as you sit a little bit, and then by and by they subside as well, because you are not chasing them, because there is no field of action, there is no field of transaction. So you're in an environment where the thoughts may come, but you don't have the field of transaction, you know. And then slowly they subside. Yeah. Yes, Sylvia? Yes, Andrea?
I was going to ask, what question could I ask that when I do ask it will give me a little bit more clarity about the summary of what we had covered so far until verse 94.
Wow, this guy is really smart, huh? You see? Now he puts the ball on my court now.
What I'm really asking is a summary.
Can I ask you, give answer? If you ask me this question, I give a reply. Who is asking this question? No. What or who is illuminating this question? Yes,
And she nailed that. That is the summary. Samadhi nailed that. The summary of Vivekachudamani is, you are that. You are the witnessing. So that's the summary. So that's the question that summarizes everything we have been exploring so far, the discrimination between you and all these phenomenal objects appearing within you. So the question then is, so how do I permanently, make a stand as aware, and how to do that? How to be there as awareness all the time, and how to see the world as meteor all the time. So the answer is always the same, by having this knowledge hard and fast, firm, and always present in your life. The vasanas are going to say, hey, the world is duality, and you need to chase, you need to secure, you need to protect, you need to enjoy, you need to... And then you keep the knowledge alive in your mind. You say, no, I am that. Like Nisargadatta Maharaj used to say, I am that. I'm free from the world, yet the world is in here, and I need to play my part into the play, into the game. And I know that I'm being played by Ishvara and blah, 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 and etc., etc., etc. So keeping the knowledge alive in your mind requires tremendous effort. A lot of people think that it's enough to meditate and then develop enough sattva, and then you are quiet, and you wait for grace. So grace may come, and then you realize that you are that. And it may happen. So those moments of clarity may come, and you have a clear understanding, perception of your true nature. That is awareness. But unless we work through the knowledge as presented by the scriptures so that we can keep chipping off those ignorance-based vasanas, those vasanas may come. That's why meditation without knowledge does not help very much. You meditate, you create a nice environment, mental environment, and then from there, you don't wait for grace, man. Grace has to be earned. Anybody talking that grace is going to reveal the self to you, it's ultimately that's the most fundamental truth. But it only reveals the self to the degree that you give everything into that search. You have to give everything. It is grace or Ishvara is nothing but is the cause and effect system that governs the human experience. So unless you do your side and you use your scientific mind to inquire, to do your self-inquiry, and self-inquiry again is not to ask who am I, who am I, who am I. That is a very simplistic way that may work for highly qualified students here and there. Otherwise, you have to go through the logic as presented by the Upanishads, later on reorganized more recently by Shankaracharya in different texts that he rewrote, reorganized. You go through that self-inquiry until you affirm you have no doubts about what you are. It's just a question of identity. It's the ultimate psychology, Vedanta. Because the problem of the jiva is a problem of identity. But it's not identity as I'm good, I'm bad, I'm worse, I'm unworse, I'm beautiful, I'm smart, I'm stupid. No. I'm a father, no. I am the body, or I am the mind, or I am something altogether, different from the body and the mind. Yet the body and the mind are not separate or away from me. So it's a question of identity. It's only that solves this problem, is to know very firmly who and what you are.
So it's shifting the identity from the jiva, that one's identified with as the body and the mind, to that which illuminates the jiva, which is the self.
Yeah, it's self-realization is a shift of identity. That's, I find, the most to the point description of what it is. The self, apparently deceived by Maya, is identified with the body and the mind. And then the body and the mind is the intellect, which is the sattvic aspect of our subtle body, is the only instrument we have to revert this misidentification. And we need the help of the scriptures because we got confused and misidentified with something which is not our fundamental, essential nature. So we need the logic of the scriptures as revealed by Ishvara to prove to us that we have committed an error of apprehension, of understanding. We have confused that which we are with our experience.
Since when have we confused this?
Since forever. Ignorance is beginningless. The whole recycling of the universe is out of ignorance, the fundamental ignorance, which is I, awareness, and non-dual, one without the other, and then Maya projects duality. When duality comes into place, immediately we feel frightened. We find ourselves as individual subjects in a world of an infinity of other objects, and everything here is changed from a moment to a moment and bound by time. It's a traumatizing kind of identity, and all due to this fundamental error of identification. We blame Maya, as we all know. Okay? And the scriptures describe that there must be Maya to make that which is just the light appears as the world of phenomenal objects shifting and changing from one moment to another, like a move on the screen.
So we don't really know why Maya is mechanics.
We don't.
We only know how to remove the...
We know that ignorance has always been there, like every ignorance. Any ignorance we may think, when did I learn about Chiru? And then, I learned last year. And then, when did your ignorance about Chiru Vanamalai begin? It's eternal. It's beginningless. So ignorance has always been there. It's just absence of knowledge. Okay? So we are being under the spell of ignorance and living life after life, being pushed around, programmed, and operated by Maya, Vaishvara, Vasanas. But the good news is that it can have an end. Ignorance does not have a beginning, but it has an end. On any field of objective knowledge, but most essentially, the self-knowledge, which is the knowledge of the knower, the only knower there is, which is altogether a different kind of knowledge. So that knowledge, in reference to my own fundamental, true, independent nature identity, that ignorance has an end when you know who you are. And no amount of samadhi or silence or I amness thought or I-ness thought or any of those states of mind, they don't address ignorance. They feel good, and everybody promoting the idea that you develop that state of mind and wait for grace is under the spell of ignorance called yoga. Yoga is nothing but an effort to produce a state, and most people stop there. They say, so what you are looking for is a state. It's like the Brahmin that was around here, I forgot his name. He talks about the state, samadhi, state. So most people are deceived to think that the self is a state. Some other people know that the self is not a state, and those are the people that promote a sort of direct path. There is only the self, you are that. But then they say, so you are the self, and in order to, if you don't understand it simply as I'm saying, you need to practice meditation. And then you hold on to the original I thought and stays there, like I did for 20 years with Nisargadatta Maharaj, and wait for grace. By grace has to be earned. And this realization of the self is not a spiritual awakening, because the self-consciousness is always on, it's never off. You understand? Spiritual awakening is an epiphany, it's an event, it's an experience. The light is always on. All that is necessary is the removal of those ignorance that turns our experience into a bitter experience, like, I'm the body, I'm scared here. I'm trying to forget the fact that very soon I'm going to pop off of existence, because the body, I'm identified with the body as the body. So any teaching that says you are consciousness and everything is consciousness and meditate is already better than say that enlightenment is a state.
So one would say that's a level above.
It's a level above because it's already stating from the beginning that consciousness is the subject and the nature of reality is non-duality. These are non-dual teachings, non-dualists that teach, but they don't have a complete teaching to help people. They don't go even into meat. They don't understand Karma Yoga, Dharma Yoga, anything. They just say the self is non-dual, and it's very simple. You have to be motivated to seek it, to look for it, and so on, and meditate. And then by grace, these truths may be revealed to you. But without the help of the scriptural knowledge, It's very, very difficult. It's very, very difficult. You're going to be like I was for 30 years, trying to make sense of those fragments, those pointers of Nisargadatta Maharaj in Ramana, because I did not have access to the complete teachings of Vedanta. You have to say, okay, I am that, and I am this. I thought, and then I go there, and then there is bliss, there is this silence, there is this and that, and then those states come and go, and from there I'm trying to prove to myself that I am consciousness and everything is consciousness, but there is no teaching to back it up, that statement, that fundamental mantra, Tattvamasi. It's very difficult without the scriptures. And that's what distinguishes Vedanta from many of these dualistic teachings and non-dual. There are a lot of Advaita teachings there, but it's not Vedanta, because they don't have a complete teaching. They only have this teaching, you are that, and meditate, and then by grace you may realize it. Some yoga teachers, they just say, well, the self is a state. State, as we know, is an experience. So just meditate until you get that state, and one day that state is going to remain permanently with you, which is again a lie.
So I guess somebody can't really use the word Vedanta unless they're including the Panchadasi, Tattva.
The Upanishad, the teachings of the Upanishads, and most important until they include Karma Yoga and Dhamma Yoga, because that's where everybody keeps out. They think, no, we don't want to go there because that is Mithya. We don't need Mithya. We have established already that is not real, it's a dream. Let's talk about that and let's create a symbol for that and let's meditate or whatever and be established, or make a stand there, or how you say. There are some people who say that you
Firmly established.
Yeah, there is another term that these teachers. So, but anyhow, that's the idea, and a lot of people do not understand the difference between Vedanta and these other Advaita teachings. Yeah, they go here and there and say it's the same thing, but it's not.
I've spent 15 years also in the Ramana Nisargadatta teachings and advised on different forums, and I've never come across anything as detailed and comprehensive as this.
And another point, since you were saying that, is that Vedanta is science. And Vedanta has nothing to do with its Indian Sanskrit background. A science can be present within its background, its cultural background, but it can be disengaged by its cultural background. What Ramji has done, which is a gift to the West, to the West in general, is that he has disengaged the science from its original culture and present to the world. What counts is the science. It's not, the way it's dressed up and colored and so on. And people, in general, they believe that the important thing is how you dress up the knowledge. How you're going to pack this knowledge. What counts is the knowledge, is the science. It does not matter if you wrap it nicely with a package with Sanskrit culture or any other culture, What counts is to keep the integrity of the teachings. And moreover, the way Ramji is doing it and the way I'm following his steps is we present the very nectar of the teachings. We just present the most fundamental nectar of the teaching. We don't go much around like that, We just, it's, some people are read for it, some people, anyhow, people get benefit, even if they don't have yet a clear understanding of what Vedanta is, even if they do not have a fully developed value for knowledge. So these meetings, they help people to develop that value It's a kind of planting seeds or helping people develop a value for knowledge rather than experience, because it's very subtle. Most people still remain with that doubt, Shall I put all my investment in knowledge, or shall I keep 50% here, 50% there? To be safe, like investments, you want to reduce your risks, right? Well, when it comes to knowledge, to self-knowledge, you have to give everything into one thing, which is self-inquiry and self-realization, self-knowledge. Ramana Maharaj said itself, by knowledge alone the self can be realized and known. But then he would talk about bhakti, about meditation, depending on the level of the questioner. But fundamentally it's knowledge. That's why it's not called, the scriptures on self-experience. No, the scriptures on self-knowledge. You don't hear people saying the scriptures on self-experience. Because the scriptures, they state right away that the self is not an object of experience, neither an object of knowledge. It's the knower. People give more credit to any kind of teaching if it's packed up spiritually, if it's presented spiritually. Everybody in white, they teach in white, and then all these folkloric things, and then people give credit because it looks spirit, looks good. Oh, the guy is Swami, or the guy is a Brahmin, the guy is that. I was joking with some friends that next year I'm going to make a lot of tattoos and come with a small short showing my tats and only a short jeans pants to teach traditional Vedanta. Just to make a point that there is nothing spiritual about enlightenment, there is nothing spiritual about self-knowledge or self-realization. And spirituality is a culture that belongs to India. And it's beautiful, it has its purpose. The whole Vedas is based on this culture. But for someone who comes to Vedanta, all of those are just irrelevant, They're just circumstance, or not circumstance, there is another word that's not coming to my mind. Yeah. Like Ramji says, I want the meat. What is the meat, right? I don't want just the salad and these boiled vegetables. What is the meat? But that's the way it goes. It takes time. We are all very, very deeply conditioned to believe in experience. Yes, my dear?
No, I was just...
No.
Now comes the question.
Sorry.
Very excited about your question.
She has good questions, but she's a bit shy.
Yeah. That's sweet. And nobody walked it.
Huh? No? No. Does anybody knows French language?
Sorry.
Oh, he can translate your question. Okay. Anybody else?
I have a question about the witness, but the first part of the question is, does it actually matter? The second part is, what does it mean when in the teachings refers to a witness? You had mentioned it a couple times, and I don't think I heard clearly. I started searching online in James satsangs about it, and I found some very detailed explanations and some kind of simplified. I think ultimately there is not a witness, but so.
Yeah, it is a provisional statement. We are trying to establish consciousness as the knower, the witnessing. But as we know, the nature of reality is non-duality. So how can you have a witness if there is nothing to be witnessed? Understand? It's a provisional little lie to point us to that direction of consciousness alone, of existence alone.
And the witness that is typically spoken of is within Nitya?
The knower, the experience, the enjoyer, it's a phenomenon in Nitya, and it's not real, not fundamentally real. Okay? Because consciousness or awareness can only know and experience in this non-real reality, not real reality, in this projection. It becomes a knower, experience, enjoyer only in this duality, in this world of duality, this mithya. And then we say consciousness is the only know, and so on, so on. But know of what? If this is only awareness, and something else is appearing in it, but awareness, all there is. It's then to resolve that, we say it's awareness, knowing, and experience itself. It's experience itself without the universe, and experience itself with the universe, because all there is consciousness. But how can it experience itself without the world? The scriptures don't have no clue, because this is one of those discussions we find in some commentaries of the Upanishads. So it cannot really experience itself, but it's the very, very light of consciousness. It's not conscious of itself, but it's the very stuff that jivas and all other sentient beings can be conscious, make them conscious of their environment.
It's like awareness dressed up within Nitya to be able to observe the whole spectrum of object.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, I see. Wow.
And we blame Maya for that.
You could have saved us a lot of time last night. Jesus.
We were talking about 3 hours about that because I didn't understand. Is it below the line? Is it, underneath? For me it was awareness, but he was saying awareness doesn't observe and doesn't talk. And then the confusion came, but if you put it like this, as a kind of tool of, not doesn't have any tools, but it's like a tool of awareness to be able to observe what's happening.
Yeah.
But it's mithya.
It's all mithya, yeah. It's all mithya. What we are is the light that is self-luminous and self-evident. And sometimes when some objects appears, it's illumined by its reflection on Maya. Its awareness reflect on Maya that produce the object.
Could you say that in order to have a knower or a witness, you have to have an intellect or a mind, and therefore that is in nitya?
Let me just wait a little bit, because there is a side conversation there that covered up your question. Can you repeat, please?
It's the same thing, but could you say that in order to have a knower or a witness, you have to have an intellect and a mind, and therefore the knower has to be in nitya?
Yes, yeah. But we also say that there is only one knower, because in mithya there is no object able to know anything. We are objects, by the way. No object can know anything without consciousness. Then fundamentally we resolve the mind of the jiva in consciousness, as our fundamental, essential, independent nature. It's a question of defining one's identity, and it works. Once you are sure about that, and you are clear, and then life becomes easy. Okay, don't have much time. No, you have asked before.
Would it be thinking in lines that knowledge and ignorance is part of reflected consciousness. To have a witness, you're still in the area of reflected consciousness.
Yeah.
And reflected consciousness is only possible because of non-dual consciousness.
Yeah. Very well said, yeah.
Yeah.
Very well said. It's all, everything resolves itself for consciousness, because without consciousness there is no experience, no knower, no enjoyer, etc., etc.
And so that means that talk of the witness, and sometimes
when we talk about the witness, we are talking about the sattvic mind, the subtle intellect, witnessing subtle objects, or witnessing thoughts, witnessing the gaps between thoughts, or witnessing the absence of thoughts. That is, reflect consciousness on a very sattvic mind.
Then is Turiya the fourth state is beyond that?
There is no Turiya as a fourth state. That was very, very badly put as a state. I don't know if it was a translation from Sanskrit. Is it a problem? Was the translation from Sanskrit to English, or even in Sanskrit it has this connotation as if it is something other than the three states?
That's always confusing.
It's confused. Turiya is that principle, that factor which pervades the three states, which is consciousness.
Yeah.
But it's not a state.
Yeah.
The mental state of the jiva. The jiva has three mental states. Okay, awake, dreamer, and deep sleeper. Yeah.
So that's all in the Mandukya Upanishad.
Yeah, in many other texts as well. In several other texts. And you have something to say?
I'll postpone it.
Yeah. Tomorrow?
Perhaps.
Next year?
Perhaps.
No. It has to be resolved sooner. Hey, Ramji is very happy today. Nice. Beautiful. Hi.
There is a term in neuroscience called metacognition, and it's very interesting because there is kind of the witness. So they measure in the brain what is happening when you are in a witnessing state.
But this is all part of the reflect consciousness.
But it's very interesting to
I know
see
science can be very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, as a Vedanti, we have no interest in phenomena, because the whole purpose of Vedanta is to discriminate consciousness from all phenomena. Every description of what happens in the brain and how those neural connections fire and so on, the brain is a physical aspect of the mind. They think that by analyzing the mind, they can understand the brain, they can understand the mind. But no, the mind, the brain, the physical aspect of the mind is an instrument. It's a byproduct of the mind. The mind is here and the brain is in here, okay? So you can analyze the effects on how the brain fires this and that, but you can never really understand the location, the functionings of the mind. It's easier to try to work out on the field of psychology to understand the mind than analyzing the brain, although it may be very interesting to connect to the physical manifestation of the mind, of the instrument of thinking, like the brain.
The mind is not in the brain?
The mind, oh my dear, you did not know that yet? The brain is in the mind. No, the mind does not come. That's why I'm trying to cut you, because we are short. The consciousness, the mind, does not come out of matter, and as a consequence, consciousness or awareness is not a byproduct of matter either. It does not come, it's not a property or product or part.
But it functions.
It uses the brains the same way it uses the stomach, the intestine, and every other organ. Okay? So the science, it wants to objectify something, and then it goes to the physical aspect and analyze phenomena here in all fields of scientific investigation, try to find answers about what's in here, they will never find it. The most they will find that everything here fundamentally resolves itself into space, because the space is the first and the most subtle, the first of all elements, the one pervading all other elements of creation. So everything resolves into space, and then they say, and now what? There is no matter, all there is space with particles that turns into energy and so on. It's a good insight. At least they understand that the world, the physical material world, is not really what it is, you know? It's an appearance. 1, 2, 3. Sadashiva Samrambam Shankarya Sharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Isvaro Gurate Meti Murti Veda Vibhagine Vyomavada Vyapata Dehaya Dakshinamurtiya Namaha Sarva Vedanta Siddhanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanandam Satguru Pranatosh Maham Om Shanti Ramji Shankaracharya Dayananda and all rich who made possible for us to have the scriptures in our life. So I need help to locate myself. What was the last verse we did?
Reverse 49.
Huh?
Reverse 49.
49?
Reverse.
Okay, 94. We finished the 94? You're becoming a joker, huh? Have we finished that? Have we finished that? Yeah, no? Or we have to begin that?
Beginning 94, yeah. I believe so.
94. Space is not affected by the object sitting in it. I mean, we can say sitting or laying down or standing up. So we can just place it as we wish. But any and all objects within space does not affect space. And it's not affected by the smell of a liquor. That's very nice. Huh? The space is not also affected by any odor, any perfume, or any smell. The self-awareness is not affected by the attributes of any limiting adjuncts. Any phenomenal object occurring, every object is limited by its delineation, names and forms, and has attributes and properties and qualities, but that does not affect the self. The self is not limited by any of those attributes of objects. The self does not lend itself to analogy, but yet we have to keep pointing to the self by the means of analogies. For it manifests every object to which it might be likened. Yet when we use words as an aid to understand the self, space provides us with the most apt analogy available. So space is formless, nameless, all-pervasive. Everything in the universe sits or lays down or stands on space. So nothing escapes space. Therefore, it's the best analogy to point to the self, consciousness, awareness, the substratum. So space is the substratum of every phenomenal object in meteor. But there is one aspect of space, like every analogy or metaphor, falls short in pointing to the self, because space is not a sentient being. It's deprived of a conscious mind. It's not conscious. It does not perceive the objects within its field. It pervades everything, but it's not self-conscious. And it's not conscious of all objects appearing in itself. That is the limitation, but yet space is the most beautiful analogy to help us to understand what we are and why we are everywhere. There's no place we are not. And that this space explains it very simply. Space is all-pervasive, omnipresent, and timeless. We heard those attributes many times from different religious structures as well. Omnipresent. Most of these are in fact not attributes, but negations of attributes. This verse refers to the concept of a limiting adjunct called an upadi, which is described in the previous verse as that which has no nature in itself, meaning to say that which does not stand by itself because it depends on other factors, meaning to say many things depend on other facts, or the fact fundamentally everything depends on awareness, consciousness. Space is not measured by time, yet time is measured by space. That's very nice, huh? The space between two objects, and it gives us a sense of time, I have to get from this object to that object, or the time between the beginning of a contact with an object and the end of a contact with an object, meaning to say the beginning of an experience and the end gives us a sense of duration. Duration gives this gives birth to this sense of time. This verse, the upadi in the example is the redness of the crystal, which is mere appearance produced by the rose being near the crystal, as we all understood in the previous week. Several times we went through the traditional example, or metaphor of the crystal and the rose to explain the upadi as the redness appearing in the crystal. All that we ascribe to the body-mind is like the redness of the crystal. All such attributes are appearances made possible by their proximity to the self. All such attributes are appearances made possible due to the proximity of those objects to the self. It should not be thought, however, that the self is in one place and the body-mind and all other objects in a different place. That is the very, very important thing. It's not in the metaphor of the crystal and the red flower. We have two objects, and then we bring them close together, and then one object borrows certain attributes from the other, and then it appears as something else. So, but in the case of awareness, consciousness, and all its upadis, it's not that awareness is apart from its upadis. Awareness is pervading, sustaining, and maintaining, and recycling all its upadis. So that's just to make it clear. It's not that the body-mind is in one place and awareness is another place near to it, therefore the body. Because when we look from here, we may get this impression. You say, okay, the mind is in here, the intellect is in here, and the awareness is there. I say, no. You see it here? Awareness is everywhere. And we could put another arm here. We could put another arm here, because the self is everywhere. Okay? In the phenomenal manifestation of objects, the self is pervading everything. All such attributes are appearances made possible by their proximity to the self. It should not be thought, however, that the self is in one location and the body-mind is another, near to the self. not that the body-mind is really separate from the self. It is when we perceive such separateness that the limiting adjunct, the upadhi, appears. The moment we give reality to those apparent, independent, separate upadhis, objects, and then the self appears as the upadhis. Ignorance arises simultaneously with its perception, and perception occurs in the light of awareness. So we cannot be blamed. It's all designed to be so. So we have this, all our sense organs extrovert towards the world of objects, and the moment that they hook up, they connect with their respective objects, immediately we have duality. I mean, by ourselves we would never have figured out that the nature of the I is non-dual and it's the universal self. We will never. So we need somehow the scripture being revealed to us, because we are designed in such a way that Shwara produced the field of action with all these objects, and the jivas with its instruments of contact and transact with the world, and an immediate bang, experience happens, and experience is in duality, meaning to say the ignorance is built into this system. That's why sometimes we refer to Maya as the beginningless ignorance, because it tricks every creature, every being to believe that the world is in fact dual. The nature of the world is duality, and everybody is an independent, separate, individual object, but we think that we are individual subjects. So we say, I am the subject, which makes things more complicated, you know. I'm the subject here, and I'm the center of the universe. Everything is objects, you know, gravitating around me. And I need to find a way out to secure myself. Okay, let's look into the smell of the liquor. I like that one. I mean, when I redo this text, I'm gonna change, and I'm gonna put the smell of wine. Because if you know Italian wine, I mean, you have to understand wine to see the nuance of its bouquets. You know, beautiful, oh, this and that. Awareness does not get affected by that.
I'm starting to think that you have a wine vasana.
I used to. I used
Only
to.
for Italian wine, right?
I used to. Yeah, that's true. I was fixated with Italian wine. Okay. Ignorance arises simultaneously with its perceptions, and perception occurs in the light of awareness. But as nothing exists outside of awareness, nothing can affect awareness, just as nothing can affect space. The limiting adjuncts of the body-mind do not produce any change in awareness, nor do they leave any residual, as suggested by the analogy of the smell of wine left behind in a container. So we have the liquor, containers there, and they open the container, and then there is this fragrance come from the perfume or the liquor or the wine, and they say, the space is being affected. Huh? No, it's not really being affected. It comes and just a little breeze, and then the smell is already gone, and then it dissipates itself. It was just a subtle appearance on space, and much less awareness. Awareness was not at all affected by any of that. The reference here in the perfume of the liquor, the reference here is to karma, which can produce no effects in the self based on past actions, nor future results based on present actions. So the self is not subject to karma. It's very important we understand that. When we see that the Jiva Mukta is free from karma, it means that he is well established by knowledge in the self as the self. And therefore, he does not buy into the karma notion, which is ignorance. But his jiva is going to still be dealing with whatsoever parabdha karma is to fructify. But he's going to deal from the standpoint of awareness. He's going to say, okay, Ishvara, it's my parabdha karma, but you know what? I know it's all you, and I don't take it personally. So it's not even his parabdha karma, he does not own it. Therefore, he's free. The self is not affected by karma. But the question then arises, if the self is beyond action, why does the one who realizes the self remain in a body-mind that continues to function in the field of action? The next session of this text takes up this question. That's a very common question. But people are still acting out. That the very, very smart gurus, they stop acting out. Some of them, even the most smart one, they don't talk and they don't act. Because it may give people a bad impression. So if I'm acting, I'm putting karma, creating karma, and I have to deal with result of karma. And if I talk, I'm creating karma. So the very smart ones just remain silent. I'm not making a reference to Ramana. Ramana is an example. Talk about this, and these gurus that understood, these fake gurus that understood that the best course of action is silence and no action, and everybody is going to see that you are beyond karma. But you are not beyond karma, you are just avoiding karma. The karma of the liberated. Verse 95. The results of actions done before liberation fructify like an arrow released from a bow. This is a nice analogy. The body is a manifestation of past action. It takes shape from what we have done and what we wish to do. But the body is not like individual ignorance on the level of imaginary reality. It is real, it's practical, it exists, it's empirical. Okay? So the body is Ishvara's creation, it exists, and it's designed to act, with rare exceptions. Like Ramana was an exception. He reduced his mental and physical activities to the minimum possible. Just like he wants to enjoy the bliss of the self. But even though he had this beautiful vasana for bliss and ecstasy and samadhi, still he had to sometimes stand up to pee or doing other things and eat some food. Some karma is necessary to be a human being, in any case. The body is not on the same level of imaginary reality, the subject reality of the jiva. The body is Ishvara's creation. It's empirical. In the words of the tradition, the body is a manifestation of Ishvara, the cosmic ignorance. As such, it does not disappear when the individual ignorance disappears. The bodies cannot disappear. The only thing that disappears is one's wrong notions about one's self and the nature of reality. The verse compares the karma of the liberated to an arrow that has already been released from the bow and must continue until it hits its mark. Parabdha karma. Parabdha karma is fructification of our previous actions. As I said, that when we put a karma in the field, an action in the field, there are some immediate results of the actions and there are some unseen results. So those unseen are deposited in the causal body, and then when they fructify, they are called parabdha karma. When they sit in the causal body, we call them sanchita karma. When they are placed into the field, it's agami karma. So different levels of karma. its path cannot be halted in mid-flight. So once the action is put in here, it's in the system and it's going to fructify. Nobody knows when, because the field of action, Ishvara's field, Dharma field, is a system, a very, very complex system of cause and effect, that we never know when certain actions are going to fructify. But they fructify one way or the other. You know? Most of the time we cannot connect our prarabdha karma with actions we put in the field. We cannot. The equation of Ishvara mind, or karmic equation of life, is very, very complex. We need an all-knowing perspective, view to understand. That's the mind of God. A group of 10 men cross a stream. When they reach the other side, their leader counts only 9, neglects to include himself, and believes that one of them has drowned. Lamenting the boss, he bangs his head against a tree. Oh no, Ishvara. And then those dramatic people, they do that. I did it once. I was so mad with Ishvara that I kicked the door, and then I hurt my foot. And I got immediately result of my karma, you know. There was some unseen as well, because for a long time I had to fix my foot. So he hit his head on the tree, and then because he believed that his friend was drowned. Lamented the loss, he bangs his head. The wood is bandaged. The wound is bandaged. But while this ministration is taking place, somebody comes to him and says, hey, by the way, you know, nobody was missing. You were the 10th man. He said, oh my God, I forgot to count myself. So, very nice, good, I'm very happy. His ignorance of the 10th man was removed, and the sorrow that it has caused, that misapprehension, immediately was released. So no more sorrow, no more suffering. But the wound in his head remains. When we realize the self, we are liberated from our ignorance, but the body must still endure the effect of any action that has already been set in motion. That's so nice, huh? Beautiful analogy. So we are free, and then we conform our thoughts, emotions, and actions to Ishvara, the Lord. So our actions are going to be contributions to the overall total needs of the field. Therefore, we are just playing in harmony with the Lord, not producing any conflicting karma, but whatsoever karma that was released from past actions, they must manifest. And then sometimes some observers find it strange. Oh, that guy has some karma. Yes, it can be. It happens. You know, there is karmas are manifesting. And then it's important to have the willingness to resolve karma rather than push it under the carpet. When the karma comes, there is some difficulty, some adversity, some conflict, and then, okay, let's clear it. It's something done in the past, so let's resolve it. Verse 96, an arrow intended for a tiger does not stop mid-flight when the archer realized that he mistook a cow for a tiger. That's very nice as well. How can we stop that? You know those karmas that you something is cooking inside and you're really getting like, oh no, I have to do this, I have to say something to this person and give him a lesson. Somebody has to do it, you know. It's a question of dharma. I have to teach it. I'm Arjuna in this case. I'm going to teach a lesson to this Duryodhana. No, and then you start really pressing your mind, and when you see you are all excited, and then you start offending the other, say, by the way, you know Jesus, blah, 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 blah. So the moment that you let it out, sometimes 10 seconds is enough for us to understand, Holy Ghost. I did not want to release it, but I released it. When I release it, and then we need to deal with the karma of the situation. We cannot take it back. We try sometimes to say, hey, by the way, I did not mean that. I have said so many bad things about you, but I did not mean that. It was a mistake, this and that. No, but karma is going to play. You have to work out the karma. The ignorance ends. The effects of ignorance may continue. I like an expression, I think, said by Ramana Maharaj, remainings of ignorance. Those ignorance-based vasanas still, putting some pressure in one's conscious mind, thoughts, feelings, and looking for expression. Remainings of ignorance. When ignorance ends, the effects of ignorance may continue, as illustrated in the previous example of the man who banged his head against the tree due to an illusory loss. This verse further elucidates the point. Action set in motion due to a misconception of the true nature of reality, such as the identification as the body-mind, must complete their course, even though we no longer labor under that mistaken identity as the body-mind. We no longer identified, but all those actions that we place in the field based on that fundamental ignorance, they will fructify. Must complete their course, even though we no longer labor under that misconception, I am the body. No future karma will be generated once ignorance is dissolved and one is firm in the knowledge, I am the self. So when we are firm in this knowledge, we don't create karma. Is that so? Yes and no. Mistakes may happen. You understand? And then we have to deal with the karma. We are all human beings. The individual who knows who he is wiser. He understood the system, conformed his mind, and follows a life, walks the talk of the scriptures. But here and there mistakes can be made. Okay, it's not that purification of the mind is a never-ending process, so to speak. But generally speaking, the one firm on this knowledge does not create more karma, meaning to say, no actions that are regrettable, verbal and physical action which are regrettable. Which are those actions based on the fundamental ignorance, I am the body-mind, therefore I have to secure, protect, and attack, and defend, and all those mine, it's me and mine, all those actions, they go dissolving. And here and there, a little mistake may happen. Because as we heard hundreds of times, this ignorance is hardwired and very cynic, and sometimes it may come. No future karma will be generated once ignorance is dissolved, but that which has brought this body into being is like an arrow released from the bow. Self-knowledge will not deter the course of those previous actions, because liberation is for the individual. That's very nice. And karma belongs to the entire field. Karma is impersonal. Liberation is for the individual. And karma belongs to Ishvara, it's impersonal. It is the system, cause and effect system. When the individual realize his identity as the self-awareness, is not that he says, oh, now I am God, Ishvara. No. The self appearing as an individual. Okay, so whatsoever karma that belongs to your karmic account as a jiva is going to be processed by Ishvara system, and you're going to have to deal with the parabdha karma of those actions. Okay? So karma is impersonal, it belongs to Ishvara. Self-knowledge will not prevent or stop the manifestation of those karmas, because the liberation is for the individual. And karma belongs to the entire field of action, not to a single individual. You have to pay your debts. And as such, it is a property of Ishvara. And Ishvara does not care whether the individual is liberated or no. That makes it very clear. Ishvara has no clue. It's just an impersonal system. Delivering, it's a facilitator, delivering one's parabdha karma exactly according to our past actions. Karma belongs to the entire field. Of action. It is the property of Ishvara, and Ishvara does not care whether the individual is liberated. His laws are entirely impersonal. If we realize that, we don't even need to realize I am the self to live a happy life. That is the fruits of karma yoga. Karma yoga is someone who understood Ishvara knowledge, the knowledge of Ishvara. How Ishvara and its laws govern the entire field. If you understand that the system is impersonal, yet you understand the connection, the relationship between Ishvara, your actions, and your parabdha karma, and then you understand the mechanics, and then you know you have a certain responsibility if you want to live a happy life. But fundamentally you know that Ishvara, the system is impersonal, and Ishvara is going to be delivering the results of everyone's actions. It's not in our hand. We have a small influence to it, to the degree that we conform our actions, harmonize our actions with the Dharma field. The more we harmonize our thoughts and actions with the universal laws of the Dharma field, the more we live a more happier and calmer life. That's why Ishvara is also very important as a purifier of the mind in the prospect of moksha, because we don't want just punya karma for the sake of punya karma. We want punya karma for the sake of having the equipment fit for self-inquiry and self-knowledge. And that's the difference between the Vedantins, the karma yogis, within the context of moksha, and the karma yogis only within the context of punya karma. I'm a karma yogi because I want punya karma, I want a happy life. But when we contextualize it with moksha, and then we don't care much for the punya karma, but we care for the byproduct of punya karma, which is a contemplative, calm, relaxed, sattvic mind. Because that is the platform we need to do the good work. Well, that's why Ramji says, and I keep repeating it myself as well, Ishvara knowledge is the key. It's the key for self-knowledge. If we don't understand, there are so many people who understand who they are, but they were never taught, and they have never been a karma yogi. And they can help people, they can somehow inspire people. But without Karma Yoga, it's very difficult. You need to understand the system and know how impersonal it is, so that the mind can begin relaxing and developing, getting rid of those excess of rajas and tamas. Understand the whole game here, how it works, the three energies, and the teachings have to be complete. We cannot forcibly become sattvic or contemplative. Only knowledge. We need always to understand in order, and then the gunas follow our understanding. We cannot control and manipulate. Recently we have a new book about gunas, the three energies. You cannot manipulate, manage and control the gunas by willpower. It's only by really understanding how it affects your life, operates in your life, and then you say, now I understand. Therefore now I have the willpower to adjust my life. But if we don't understand, if we don't have the knowledge, willpower alone, how are you going to do that? That's why it's fundamental to have Ishvara knowledge, Dharma and Karma and so on. And that's why, although this text does not cover Karma Yoga, very often I open a little window to refer to it a little bit, because it's the best, the most effective purifier to prepare the mind. Verse 97. It's not correct to say that the liberated are affected by the results of their past actions, just as it's not correct to say that a person who killed someone in a dream state should be held accountable when he or she wakes up. That's very nice. The other day we are playing this example. No? So somebody killed someone in a dream and then feels so guilt, and he goes into the police station and say, hey, I killed my wife, so therefore I should be arrested, and so on. It's the same thing when you realize who you are, and then everything that you did in the past, that from the standpoint of culture it was shameful or something to be guilt about, and so on. All of that is dissolved because you see that as a reference as a dream. It was, it was a dream by which I was being operated by self-ignorance. So ignorance was making me do those things. Those ignorance-based vasanas were pushing me around and making do stupid things. Yeah? Rajasic, tamasic thoughts and actions. And now I have my mind that is mostly sattvic. Therefore I engage sattvic thoughts and actions. But what is the difference? So, I am something other than karma, I am something other than whatsoever punya karma or papa karma is being fructified. So I don't own any of that. It's just a dream. Should be held accountable when he or she wakes up. The doer and enjoyer is the ego, or the intellect as presented in this text. The intellectual cheat, which is jnana maya kosha, and I got it right finally enough. Even this statement is not strictly accurate, as the ego is a thought that occurs after an action has been performed or the result of an action has been experienced. This is a very nice thing. It says that the ego does not really exist until you perform an action or you have to deal with the result of an action. So the ego is the doer of action. The enjoyer and sufferer of the results of actions is that who feels, I am the originator of this action. It's the sense of mine. And this is the ego. So the ego does not come into place until we place an action or we need to deal with its results. The ego, so to speak, comes late to the party and insists that he has been there all along. The sense of continuity of the ego. Oh, I have it. Very great analogy, explanation. Huh? Yes.
So who enacts the action then, if it's not the ego?
Ishvara.
Ishvara. And then the ego justifies it as if it's my action.
Ego owns it. Yeah, ego owns it. But it owns it only when the action is taking place or when he's dealing with the result of it. When the result, he's going to take shame or pride. And doing, he's going to feel, I'm doing the right thing, so on. But before the action takes place, the ego, what is the ego? The ego is the doer of action, the one who feels, originates the action, enjoys the action, and so on. Once the ego has been negated by knowledge, when the intellect sheet is understood to be just the not-self, a reflection of the self, its false claims to its doership fall to the ground. So he does no longer claims I am the doer, owner, enjoyer, originator, thinker, and so on of this action. So its false claim of doership falls to the ground once it's understood that it's all happening in the intellectual cheat. Okay? The ego understood it. The ego understands that it's all happening automatically since its sense organs connect with the objects in the field and then brings about a stimuli and then a result comes almost like in automatic. And they understand, this is all impersonal. I cannot own it. He can dissolve the sense of doership, ownership, by establishing itself in awareness as awareness, or resolving all its actions into Ishvara's actions. You see the importance of Ishvara knowledge. So you can already solve most of one's problem by understanding Ishvara. And then it's going to erode gradually the sense of doership of the jiva. And he's going to develop a calm, contemplative mind. And sattvic mind is a happy mind. That's the nice mantra that came up in this seminar. Sattvic mind is a happy mind. The mind of a karma yogi. So all claims of doership all actions belong to Ishvara, the field, not to the imagined individual entity. When the ego is negated, as is the case with the liberate, there is no one left to act or to suffer or enjoy the results of action. What are you talking about? I see these gurus acting all the time. That's a contradiction here. When the ego is negated, as is the case with the liberate jiva, there is no one left to act or to suffer or enjoy the results of actions. So the body is going to act according to its programs, according to its vasanas, and according to Ishvara. All actions belong to the field, Ishvara. Everything is going to carry on, but the jiva now is being governed, operated by good vasanas, knowledge-based vasanas. He's responding intelligently to the field. All those actions go on, but the jiva with knowledge is well established as awareness. Therefore, he feels that he's being acted out, he's being played. That's when I mentioned that I never feel that I'm doing anything here. as a teacher. There is no teacher here. There is only the scriptures, and Ishvara has just assigned me this position. So because that's how you feel. You feel like Ishvara is doing you, is playing you. There is only Ishvara. That's why even to know Ishvara, to be firm, sometimes I like to say you need a hard and fast Ishvara knowledge. We hear again and again, we need a hard and fast self-knowledge. But if you have a hard and fast Ishvara knowledge, it neutralizes all the agitations on the level of the jiva. Not necessarily establishing him as awareness, he needs to go further with its own investigation, inquiry, but at least he has resolved the world, the jiva, all into Ishvara. And then he has peace of mind, the platform on which the self-inquiry fructifies very, very rapidly. So there will be action taking place, but there is nobody only claiming my actions and this and that. There's no question of shame or vanity for anybody who has this knowledge. This is the truth. No vanity, no shame. It's all Ishvara. We have to identify the I thought with the body mind to experience karma. We have to identify the I thought. Yeah, he's talking about the I thought, the reflect consciousness. We have a jiva, which is a reflect consciousness. And then you have to identify that with the body mind in order to experience karma, to have karma. The I is in reality nothing but consciousness, awareness. The self, the ego, is the misidentification of the self with objects that appear in the field of action. We have seen and established and discriminated over and over again that the self, somehow due to this incredible power called Maya, identifies itself with its upadhis, with its own experience, apparent experience. We have to identify the I thought with the body-mind to experience karma. The I is in truth really only awareness, the self. The ego is the misidentification of the self with objects that appear in the field of action. The self identified with experience. And most people who meditate is just an effort to control my experience. And when you have this knowledge, you know that every experience is beautiful because the most ordinary experience is only awareness experience itself. What the fuss about having to go right and left to the top of the mountain or here and meditate and there? You know, everybody wants to have a better experience, an extraordinary experience. It's the self, experience itself. Therefore, we don't need to be concerned about controlling our experience. That's why the verse says, before or after self-realization, you just cut your wood and cook your chai and eat your food, watch some football on the TV, some movie. If people want to ask questions about Vedanta, you just talk something. This knowledge to be shared, by the way, it's important we share. The world is crying for this knowledge. And if people want to hear what is happening, what you are doing, just share it. It's 1 in 100 is going to have an interest, really, and then one begins developing that value for self-knowledge. So it's important that we share. So we do whatsoever Ishvara presents us as a proper response to the stimuli of life. But do it knowing that I'm not doing anything. I'm being done. Understand? I'm being done. I'm serving the Lord. That's the best way to put it. And that's how in Vedanta the teacher is presented as someone serving the student, which, by the way, is just a friend. Arjuna was a friend. He's a friend of Krishna. When this misidentification as the body-mind sees the field of action no longer concerns us. I think I'm talking before, you don't care about what next experience Ishvara is going to present. It's all good. I'm all experience the self. You have no concern about the world, you know. You just take life as it comes. It continues in its systematic way, it's a system, to produce results appropriate to the actions we have previously delivered into the field. It's going to keep fructifying. Whatsoever happens, it's perfect. Otherwise it would not be happening. We have already established that the system is designed by pure knowledge and intelligence, and is custom-made to every individual soul for the purpose of its own apparent evolution. So there's nothing to be concerned. It's happening, it's because it's happening. It's the best thing. It continues in its systematic way to produce results of appropriate to actions, but we no longer think ourselves part of this insentient process. The system is insentient. It's important to understand it. Okay? Ishvara is insentient. This is a big one. Ishvara is insentient. It borrows its sentience from consciousness awareness. Okay? The whole body of creation, Ishvara, the creator, the maintainer, the destroyer, and so on, is all insentient. It's energy, matter. Whatever happens to the body-mind does not happen to the one freed from identification with the body-mind. Ignorance is likened in this verse to a dream, and one who is awake no longer suffers the effects of actions performed in a dream. Karma cannot touch the Jivamukta. Jivamukta is a Jiva with hard and fast self-knowledge. Verse 98, we can take a break.